This is part of a two-series video that will show you how to research and prepare a comparative market analysis for a property. And the first part of the research is really just getting all of the information together before you even start looking at the value. This is an investment property that we're looking at, so I'm going to use it as our example. So first, in the MLS, what you really want to do is gather everything. I'm going to explain why. So now we list everything, including the brokerage information, and click up here to create a PDF of that. Now, one of the important reasons for including all of the brokerage information is so that you have the commission information. Now, this is on the purchase side. Obviously, if you're listing a seller property, wouldn't have that commission, but this is just to ensure that all of the facts that were initially outlaid during the decision-making process, that everything is kind of set in stone and nothing changes between now and the closing day. So we're gonna create a folder. Let's go best practices here. So we're gonna use the team drive. We're gonna go right into your folder. Everybody has their own, and I'm gonna say that what you wanna do is create a new folder for each property. So what is this? 66 5th and all. Use whatever naming convention you want. I call this complete listing sheet because that's what it is. The important thing here is to do things in a consistent manner. So for example, you always want to make sure that the naming convention is the same. It just makes looking things up easier down the road. Anytime there's a paperclip, you have to check that for additional documents. In this case, they have a lot of additional documents. I'm not going to do this because of the sake of time for this video, but what you would want to do is download each one of these documents into the folder, okay? And that's just going to make sure that you have all of the information. Up here, I call this the Warren card. The Warren Group provides all of the MLS public record information, and so I'm going to just copy this. And again, this is listed as a 3-family. It may not actually be a 3-family technically, so it's important to do the due diligence on this. We recommend that the agent and the buyer double check this at the town because the assessor information may not always match the building department's information. In any case, we can see this again if there are discrepancies. Like this is all heated by gas. The fuel type is oil, so it may be worth checking for permits to make sure that the property was permitted for the gas conversion. And that can be obtained at the building department. I'm going to click on this little icon here to create a PDF, and I can click that and just call this Warren card. Now, I would love it if everybody uses the same naming convention as me, because then it's going to be easier for us to help each other out, but use whatever works best for you. All right, so we have that. Now we're going to go to the city of Lowell, because this property is located in Lowell. You can search virtually any city this way to find their official website. Once you get to their website, you can look up the property. Now, I haven't been to this website in a while, so I have to poke around a little bit. We're looking for the assessor's information on the property. Again, this is where we're going to see what discrepancies exist between the Warren Group and their information and what the city or town has on file too. And I'm not seeing. Okay, so see how I have to poke around a little bit. Each site is different. What I'm looking for is either public records, and a lot of times there's a link, or you can see, look at building permits. This might save me a trip to town hall to look that up. Let's see, property records. Nearly every city or town in Massachusetts is going to have this information. You just have to look for it. And I'm back. I paused the video. I was just poking around. I don't see a link to property information. We may find it through this GIS. There are two ways to find the GIS information, and I'm going to use this link first, and I'll show you a backup strategy for it. The other thing that we'll see on the website is the taxes. Now, when a property closes, there's a good chance that it will be reassessed in the following year. So your buyer should know that there's a chance that the annual tax rate may change. Not the rate, but the amount. Okay, so I've clicked on this. I'm going to click on Access Property Information. It's interesting. So this is supposed to be a 55 6th Street, and I don't see the numbers. I don't see numbers anywhere in here. Maybe they spelled them out, which would be inconsistent with the way the... Yep, so they did. They spelled it out. This is not the street address. The street is actually 6 ST, and that's the way the street sign is, so you're going to run into these inconsistencies. Not the end of the world. All right, so this is a computer overlay of the property. This is not a proper plot plan. It's really just based on the Geological Institute. They're running estimations, so they may not really be this close to the boundary, but it's important to have a good idea or a general idea of the property boundaries. I'm going to print this and add it to my file. I like to call this Lowell, MA, whatever the city is, MA GIS map. Okay. All right, and you have that. It's ASPX format, whatever that means. So I'm going to turn this into a PDF. At the end, we're going to call it GIS map. At the end, we're going to compile all of these into one document, so it's easy to work with. Now, sometimes within this file, you can actually get to the actual property information, the property card that I was looking for earlier, and I don't see it. And so we're not going to worry about it. I mentioned that there's a backup way, so if you want to, if you can't find it on the Lowell website, you could type in Lowell MA GIS. All right, and you can see that there are a few different ways to find the GIS information. You can also look for Town Assessors Database. This kind of brings us back to where we were. Property tax records. I don't know if that's gonna... this looks like kind of a web address that is maybe just fishing for people to sign up. It's not an official site. Give it one more look here. And we don't see it, and so we're going to move on. Okay. So far we've collected the city and town information. We've collected the complete listing sheet. Now I would like to see what's going on in the neighborhood. All right, so we're going to do a search. I'm just looking at multifamilies because that's what this is. I'm going to select all statuses except for rented. And it's good practice to plug in the city or town name, because if you're abutting, a neighboring town, you don't want to accidentally include those properties, and you're going to look back 12 months. This is going to give you an idea as to whether or not your property is at the high end of the range or the low end. This is kind of interesting that there are no other recent sale. Oh, I didn't put in my radius. It's a pretty dense area, so I'm gonna just start with, I'm actually gonna reduce this to 25. So if you're downtown Boston, you might even do 1/10 of a mile. If you're in, Concord or Sudbury or something like that, you might do a mile. The goal is to get a reasonable sample. If you have, so here I've got 55, and that's because I included these others as I started to get concerned. So this is a great sample, 10 or 20 properties. It's going to give me an idea of what's happening in the neighborhood. All right, so this two family, this sold for, I guess it's still under agreement. This was listed at $269, so a lot more than our subject property. Again, $287, $270, $250. If I scroll down, you can see that so there were 15 multis within this quarter-mile radius. The average list price is $345. The average sale is $360. Now our subject property is right about $500, so we are on the high end of the spectrum, which means, are we overpaying? Now this one just sold for $475. Okay, so this is kind of telling that already our subject property is $25,000, basically $25,000 over what this one went for, and it was right down the street, also on 6th Street. If you go up here, you create a PDF. I include the map because people do obviously want to know where these are. They could look it up. This just is a time saver. You can see we've got a nice layout. This is the information you want. Any more or any less for each property, I would recommend against. Okay. You can always drill down if anyone has questions. I call this area activity, and then date stamp it. Always date stamp it because things change over time. So you want to keep note of when you did this. Now later on, when we put it together, what I'm going to recommend is that you go in and edit this. And up here, I would label this in 12-point font, red. At the top, I would say area activity dash. These properties are not for comparison, but to show recent area activity, because that's exactly what it is. But sometimes people forget and think that, well, this is a comparison, but this would be a terrible comparison. For example, this is a two-family, another two-family, another two-family, and if your client's not clear that this is just an area activity, they're going to potentially think that you don't know what you're doing. Okay, so you want to make sure that it's clear that you're not comparing two families to three families, because obviously there's a big difference. Next, we're going to do the area market survey. This is a great report. You can use this in so many different ways, but we're going to go to Tools, Market Reports. I've created this link called AMS Anytown. If you don't have it already, we'll just go ahead and create one. So I would say AMS Anytown. Just call yours AMS Anytown, but I am going to have a dupe here. And you're going to go to screen's a little frozen. You're going to select area activity, and it doesn't matter what you select for your template, and then your town. For some reason, the MLS is not playing nice with me, so I'm going to go in here. Once you have your report saved. You can go in and edit it, but this is what you're trying to get to, area market survey. In this case, I'm looking at multifamilies, 3 months, because most things in real estate happen in a 3-month cycle from the listing stage to the closing stage. So I always like to look at that. And I'm going to go down to the city that we're searching. Search. Just to walk through, we've got our criteria up here. There's 9 properties, 9 multis in all of Lowell for sale. The average days on market's 24 days. There have been a few price changes over the past 3 months. Again, this is a 3-month report. Over the past 3 months, 28 have gone pending. So this is pretty active, right? And then you can see the list to sell ratio. Now, your sale price to original price is exactly that. When you list the property, that's your original price. When it sells, that's the ratio. Okay, so if you list it for $100 and you get 99, that's the list to sell. Now, list price to sale price, because sometimes there's a price reduction, the price might change. So this is the current active price when the offer is received and accepted. Okay, so you might have a place that's listed for $100. They do a price reduction to $99, and then they get an offer for $99. That would be 100%. That's how this works, and that's worth noting. You know, it's also worth noting that you can see that in some cases, you know, that they're getting over asking or 100% of asking in this $400,000 to $700,000 price range. Agents are commonly paying full or over asking with their buyers. Okay, this is important because if you have a client that wants to go in at 80% or 90%, it might be a fun exercise, but there's probably no chance they're going to get it because everybody, or generally in the market, what we're seeing is over asking. On the flip side, down here, you can see that, you know, in this 2 to 250 range for multis, they're probably dumps because that's a low price for a multifamily. And so people are getting them at a discount. So if your client wants to go in at 10% below in that price range, it may not be a bad thing. Maybe they can even go 12% below. But this is just not the holy grail for what to expect, but it gives you an indication of what the market's doing. We're going to save that. AMS 01-26-20. Okay, bang. So this is our top level stats. We have the area activity. We've got all of the subject property information from the Warren Group, from the town. We're just about ready to do our analysis. I'm going to jump ahead and do one other step that I would do after the analysis if I was doing this for a seller. Okay, for a buyer, you wouldn't do this because it's not as relevant information. But if I was listing this property, I'd want to know what my competition is because I'm going to see what the solds are. I'm going to see what we may expect from a sale, but I really need to know where to position the property based on other currently available properties. So I'd look at multifamilies, just the actives in Lowell. And how many do I have? 15, as we saw earlier. Now, the best way to look at this is through the eyes of a buyer. So if a buyer has a budget, or investment properties are a little different, they're looking more at the bottom line numbers. But let's say this is a traditional single family, and the buyer's price range is between 300 and 400. The thought is that they're going to look at all the houses in that range between 300 and 400. So we've got this one on Belmont Street and down to the one on 5th Street. Okay. And the idea is that they're going to either walk into this place after the one that you're listing or before the one that you're listing. And so the goal is to make sure that you have the best value proposition out there. You want to make sure that your property is positioned so that buyers feel like they're making the best choice when they make an offer on your property. And that's really the goal here. As you walk down the list, this one might be a junker. Okay, and you go down. This one's a junker compared to what we're selling, and you go down. You might get to this one and say, gee, if we really had to buy another property with the same budget that we're selling at, we'd probably go for this one. All right, that's just as an example. If that's the case, you obviously don't want to list at or above this because these guys have been on the market for 17 days. And so you clearly want to go at a lower price. We can talk about how to really fine tune that in another video. Okay, so we have this list. Same thing. We're going to call this price competition because that's what it is. Now there's only 15 or 16 here. Generally, if we're looking at listing property, say for 500, you're not going to have buyers typically in that 200 range or 800 range. If it's at 5, you might look at everything between 4 and 600. Okay, just depending on how many properties you have on the list. We're going to save this. Price competition. And just like area competition, you want to put this up here so it's clear what this part of the report is. Price competition dash, these properties are not for comparison, but to show properties competing on price. That's the text you want to put here in red 12-point font. Okay, so we're going to create another video that gets into the actual analysis of the property, but this is the first step in putting an analysis together. You kind of really have to know what you're dealing with and pull that information together too.